I want to see them to go out knowing that there's a lot on the line for them and play like they're capable. I don't want to do nothing crazy. I don't want to try to be like somebody else. I want them to be the best version of themselves in the face of all that may be built up in their minds. I'm going to try to calm them down as much as possible and trusting that the work that we've done, the reps that we've taken, will give them, if they can execute that on game day, again, under these circumstances, and they can handle it and deal with it really well. That's the message that you got a guy that can really compete and you can count on.
Well, there you have it. Pete Carroll talking about Saturday's dress rehearsal, which, to be honest, might have taken on a new level of importance or significance because it sounds like we might see some key players out there on the field on Saturday in the preseason finale against the Arizona Cardinals. Before we get into all that, though, I just want to say hello and welcome to Vegas Nation First and 10, your go-to for Raider news and analysis. It is Thursday. The Raiders just wrapped up their last practice before their preseason finale against the Cardinals on Saturday. I'm Vinny Bonsignore. I cover the Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Vegas Nation. My colleague and good friend Adam Hill is to the right of me. He also covers the Raiders and everything else in Las Vegas at vegasnation.com and the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Before we get into everything, I want to remind everybody that Vegas Nation podcasts, including First and 10, are brought to you by the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Station Casinos STN Sports. We want to thank everybody for all their support. Keep hitting the like button. We're going to have some specials for you guys for Vegas Nation subscriptions. You're going to get the information on that just a little bit later. But thank you. You're why we do this. Thank you for your support. And boy, Adam, I did not think that we would be seeing Raiders starters on Saturday against the Cardinals. I'm not still 100% sure we're going to see them on the field at State Farm Stadium, State Farm Stadium, I think it's in Glendale, Arizona. But I'm starting to lean heavily toward seeing a bunch of reserves, maybe even Geno Smith and everybody else on that first-team offense and first-team defense on the field against the Cardinals.
Yeah, it sounds like it. We know the standard Pete Carroll answer if everyone's live. Mm-hmm. We've seen that the last couple of weeks, and he kind of said that again this week, although the question was, is everyone live? And he said, yeah, everyone's live. He just kind of agreed with it. Didn't really follow up on anything after that. But I think we all just kind of assumed. I think most teams around the league are mostly saying that they're not going to play many starters this week, and kind of assumed it'd be the same with the Raiders. But, we had the assistant coaches in here today, and nobody committed to anybody playing, but they certainly.
Well, as one coach told me,
they were certainly
we play our guys.
Sure, they were certainly hinting.
Yes,
that we're
strongly
hinting that we're going to probably see some starters in action on Saturday. And look, I think there are still. We've talked about it. There's not a lot of spots up for grabs in the starting lineup, but there's a couple. Not necessarily a lot of even second team. I think most of those are pretty set, but there's still some battles going on. And at the bottom of the roster, of course, a ton of battles. So we're going to see those for sure, but may see some starters at least for a little bit.
Yeah, let's go one by one on that because the key one to me, obviously, is the Jackson Powers-Johnson-Alex Cappa battle over at right guard. And maybe part of this has been part of the starters playing is just the fact that Alex Cappa hasn't been able to play over the first two preseason games because of a cracked rib that he was dealing with. He's been back on the practice field this week, been kind of ramping up throughout the whole week. And so with him and Jackson Powers-Johnson in a battle for that right guard spot, I guess the fairest way to do that or to make a determination is to at least give Alex Cappa a chance to get out there on Saturday, or at least one game, and that would be Saturday because that's the only game between now and the preseason and the season opener on September 7th against the Patriots. So once again, still no clarity on the right guard spot, and it looks like that's going to carry into Saturday, and that's probably going to play a big role in what that final call ends up being.
Yeah, and as we kind of talked about yesterday, like you can't just necessarily say, well, Alex Cappa is going to get a shot and go out there and play, and we're going to let him see what he can do. You need to see how he interacts. The offensive line is such a unit. It's not just about one player. So if you're going to actually give him a shot and see how he's performing with everybody, you kind of have to do it with the rest of the starters. I mean, that's just kind of how it has to work out in terms of the offensive line. So you would imagine maybe the rest of the offensive line plays because you just want to see how Alex Cappa integrates into there and is part of that communication process and how they kind of play cohesively. So you kind of want to see all of them.
Okay, taking that a step further, do you need to see Jackson Powers again at right guard, or is this just the Alex Cappa with the other starters show, and then you get your starters off the field? Or
I would think it would be just Alex Cappa. I mean, they've seen quite a bit of Jackson Powers-Johnson.
The thing about that is we were talking to the assistant coaches, and he came up, obviously, Jackson Powers-Johnson did, and the response was, get one more great opportunity on Saturday. So I don't know. I'm not. I've seen it go from one end of the spectrum to the other, covering the NFL, where there's a strong sense that starters are going to play, and then they don't. Then there's a strong sense that they aren't, and then they do. So I'm not ready to make
Everyone's
any kind
live.
of a call. Everybody's live.
And also, it is a different world now than it was, right? In the preseason when they dropped down to 3 games.
True.
There used to be kind of a standard how this worked, right? It was really no action week 1 for the starters, a drive or 2 week 2. Week 3 was a dress rehearsal. You'd play into the second half, so you can make halftime adjustments, that sort of thing. Maybe one drive in the third quarter, and then the 4th game, nobody played.
Right.
Literally nobody would play. And so that's kind of how it used to go. Now there's 3, and now there is that big difference in that there is 2 weeks between the end of the preseason in terms of your 3rd preseason game and the first regular season game. So if you don't play any starters at all in the 3rd preseason game, now you're talking about 3 weeks since they've played. So I think there are teams that look at that and say, yeah, that's too long. We don't want our guys sitting that long without having a competitive down. And so they do tend to maybe play in that 3rd preseason game.
Is there a team out there that historically plays their guys in the 3rd preseason game? Don't the Chiefs?
Well, there's not really much history. I mean, it's
but I mean that continue to play their starters deeper into the the preseason. I want to say that doesn't Andy Reid kind of push his guys a little bit?
I mean, I have not looked at snap counts and playing time for Chiefs preseason games necessarily. And I think a lot of it's feel too, right? I'm not saying with the Chiefs. I'm saying with a lot of teams, it's hey, maybe traditionally you do, but right now, we think we're sharp, don't want to get out there, or we think we're sharp, do want to get out there and keep that momentum going, or hey, we haven't put it all together, we haven't seen what we want to see yet. We're going to keep you out there. And
there's also teams like the Raiders who it's a new offensive system, a new quarterback. It's going to be a new right guard and center for that matter. You've got a bunch of young wide receivers behind, Jacoby Myers, and then there's a massive young personnel behind him that you need to get up to speed. Dont'e Thornton needs more reps. Jack Best needs more reps. Trey Tucker was talking to the wide receiver coach today. He's like, this is his 3rd year, but he's a really young player as well. Then conversely, the secondary, Eric Stokes, all of 4 years in the NFL, is the graybeard on this football team in the cornerback room. So, DeCameron Richardson, Caillou Blue Kelly, who's in his 3rd year, but really, as the DB's coach was talking about, he's kind of going into his 2nd year because the first year was a little bit of a wash. And Darian Porter, a rookie cornerback. So there's so much. It's an interesting composition of this roster because there's some real veterans, especially in that linebacker room. Then this massive drop-off to a bunch of young players. And so maybe this is a team for Pete Carroll that it makes sense to get those starters out there to expedite this whole process.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I think that there's no right answer to whether you play starters or not in the preseason. I think, we've seen teams play starters go 4-0 and then be terrible. We've seen teams not play any starters, they're 0-4, they're great, or even they play starters and they still lose and they're great. They're almost is zero. I think I've seen that study, almost zero correlation between preseason success and how you play in the regular season.
The success, the failure is kind of irrelevant to me. It's the actual act of playing a bunch of starters deep into the preseason. I covered Rams teams that they never played any of their starters 1, 2, or 3. And now the Raiders played their guys.
Then it was 4.
What's that?
Then it was 4.
True. Definitely nothing on 4. But also 3, 2, and 1 as well.
And I think a lot of times we talk about this, and I think fans are the same way. You are kind of locked into that 4-game preseason, we've seen a lot, and the last preseason game, no starters play. Well, it is different. It's just different now.
There's already a game in week 4.
When there's 2 weeks off, it just becomes different. And so I think that there is a resetting of how this process is going to work. I think teams are still trying to figure it out. I mean, I think that is part of this is that there's not enough history to say this is how it works. I mean, I feel like in the 4-game preseason, everybody kind of knew, like, this is the right path. Like, you ramp up,
Yeah.
you play
There
week
was a
3,
tried
and
and
you don't
true.
play week 4. That was how everybody kind of did it because everybody knew that's how the best way to operate was. Now there's a lot of teams just trying to figure it out, and
Right.
once a team maybe perfects it, then every other team's going to follow that formula. But I think, in this system, there's really not, any traditional like data set or anything like that to tell you this is the best way to do it.
Good point. All right, so sticking on that theme, if we are to see whatever we see on Saturday, and let's just play it out that starters play, what are you going to focus on?
Well, I mean, I think obviously, as we talked about, the offensive line room, especially the right guard position, which seems to be the only one that's really up for grabs. Obviously, watching for when starters, if starters do play, when they come out, like, I think the earlier they come out, the more locked in they are probably to their role if they are out there. Who are those guys that come in next? And then who are the guys that are playing extended periods, like in the second half? Like, if there's some guys that we expect are absolutely on the team, no question about it, and yet they're playing snaps deep into the fourth quarter, you start to think, all right, maybe they're not. Maybe their role is not secure. So I think those are types of things. And then obviously the rotation of the defensive line we've talked about. Very, very interested to see how that works, especially the defensive tackles. Linebackers, I think, we're kind of set. And then in the defensive backfield, I mean, Kyle Blue Kelly was hurt yesterday. Not really an injury, just kind of a precautionary thing. And then, where is he kind of fit in?
Well, I'll tell you this. He was playing some slot cornerback today.
That's why I was referencing that to set that up. But, yeah.
Great minds think alike,
a
Adam.
different kind of a different role as he comes back.
What do you make of that?
To get him on the field. Well, I think they want him on the field. I think that's a big part of it. They believe he can play inside and outside. They think he can do a little bit of both. And if he is one of their best corners right now, getting him on the field and then getting maybe Darian Porter out on the outside on the boundary, you get them both on the field. And they've been kind of battling at that right corner spot. But if you can get them both on the field, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, very, very interesting because I think we've talked about that. At what point will he move over to slot corner? And full disclosure, he did play some slot early in training camp, but that was when they were just kind of like he was an afterthought at that point, just kind of rotating all over the place. Maybe they've started to come to the conclusion like, man, really like Darian Porter, really like Kyu Blue Kelly, but Kyu Blue Kelly can probably handle moving over to slot where maybe he profiles a little bit better than a Darian Porter. And this is a way, as Adam said, to get all three of their best cornerbacks on the field at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's what they're kind of looking to do. And, obviously there's been, some changing, some shuffling. New guys have been brought in during this process. We talk about Terrell Edmonds coming in, and where does he kind of slot in the defensive backfield? And, Lonnie Johnson had a big role, and then he's hurt. A lot
of reps for Terrell today.
Yeah, a lot of. I mean, he's
the guy.
Yeah, he's been getting more and more spots there, and it looked like Chris Smith for a while was going to be in that role. I think Terrell Edmonds has clearly taken that role in terms of the guy that comes in nickel when they bring Jerry Chin up closer to the line of scrimmage. Then they can move Terrell Edmonds back to deep safety. That's where he's kind of been playing. Like I said, Chris Smith had been playing that role. They bring in Terrell Edmonds. He's pretty firmly established that role at this point, it looks like.
I agree. Over, under on how many shots they take downfield with Dont'e Thornton before they just say, all right, we're good.
17.
Ah!
They tried it a lot today.
Yeah.
Today it seemed to be, let's see if we can hit a deep ball to Dont'e Thornton day.
Right.
And some throws were off, some just weren't caught. There were some that were played well by the defense. Like they weren't quite there again today. And so it was something they were definitely trying. They want to hit one. I know
there's no question.
They tried it, at least 2 times in the preseason. Really, they took another kind of medium range shot as well. Like they want to hit one of these. They've hit them in practice much of the offseason. We saw it in OTAs. We saw it in minicamp. We saw it early in training camp. That's part of why Dont'e Thornton has established himself at this point as a starting wide receiver. They were able to connect quite a bit. And then kind of these last few weeks, they just haven't quite been able to find that connection as regularly. I think part of it is, look, they've been practicing against the same defense every single day.
True.
They know it's coming, but it hasn't connected in the game either. So I think they believe that it's going to work. They believe that it's going to be an effective play for them during the season.
I almost feel like they need it to be.
They do need it to be, but they really, really one of the great movies of all time, Vinny.
What's
I don't
that?
know if you know it, Mean Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Tremendous movie.
Love Mean Girls.
when she says stop trying to make fetch happen. Like she's trying to make it a word.
Yeah.
They're trying to make fetch happen.
Yes, they are.
Like they want this to happen.
Right, of course.
And I think it will. Like I said, we've seen it. It's not it's not like they've never been able to do it.
Right.
But they're not gonna stop trying to make fetch happen. Like
No, they're not, and that's why I think there's going to be three long balls to Dont'e, and
that's a lot.
And my prediction is they're going to connect on one. Yeah, and maybe they'll close the book. If it happens on the first
one,
one,
hit one, they shut it
that's
down.
it, right? Yeah. They'll shut that down. But I do think they're gonna keep trying. Yep. They're going to give it the old college try. I'm also curious about that running.
Sorry not to cut you off. Pete Carroll, I thought it was interesting. Pete Carroll was talking a little bit about it yesterday and exactly how they're trying to make that connection. Mm-hmm. And he did say, and this is something we've talked about a lot with Dont'e Thornton. He said he didn't catch a lot of passes in college. And that's absolutely true. Like he was not this big productive, 100 catch guy.
No, not at all.
Making a lot of catches. Like he was a very specific deep ball guy. Didn't have a ton of receptions. When he did, he made a huge impact. Mm-hmm. And obviously the traits are there. That's why they took him. They believe he can do a lot more than he did in college. We've seen him do a lot more. We've seen him, today there was a throw across the middle in the end zone that he was able to catch. And like he's done a lot more things than I think people expected. But the one thing that everybody thought was going to be the easy part just hasn't come very easily. And a lot of that is experience. A lot of that is just the sheer volume of catches that he's had isn't there, and Pete Carroll talked about that.
Well, I talked to the wide receivers coach today, Chris Beatty, right? And it was interesting talking to him because my observation to him was, you go back to OTAs, he was the starting wide receiver day one, from day one to now. He's been on with the starters, and I was like, was that just by design to throw everything in the kitchen sink at him to help expedite it? He's like, that was the exact reason that they talked about. It's like he had such a learning curve that the best way to expedite that and to move it along as quickly as possible is just to not take baby steps. Just this is it. Go do it. And there's going to be some ups and downs. We've seen some of the downs, obviously. But they feel like there's such a skill set there, and there's something that he brings to the table that nobody else on this team has, which is the height and the speed, the length and the speed. That it's incumbent on. Let's get this as far as we possibly can to start the season. Continue to work on it during the season. But try to get it as far as they possibly can, and even if that comes at the expense of overwhelming him, although as Chris said, he hasn't been overwhelmed. Yeah. He's been able to digest it all. He's a very smart kid. He was a valedictorian in high school, and he wants to be coached. But I'll say that to say this. I still think there's going to be some growing pains during the regular season, and it might be a month before that thing is really clicking the way the Raiders want it to click.
Yeah, I think the more encouraging thing is, like, everybody has seen him make those plays.
Yeah.
So we've seen it here, like I said, in OTA, seen it in college. Everybody knows the deep ball is going to be there at some point.
Yeah.
The more encouraging thing is the other things that he's been able to do. Those were the questions. Could he run the 10-yard out and just feed in, shield the defender, make the catch? He's done that. Across the middle, he's done that. He's done pretty much everything they've asked him, except lately the deep balls just haven't connected. So I think that's the encouraging part. That the one thing that everybody knew he could do is the thing that they're still trying to kind of figure out. So I think that's a positive. Yeah,
I'm also going to keep an eye on the backup quarterbacks. I don't think that Aiden O'Connell is in any imminent danger of losing his job. But we've seen him kind of plateau, and it's been moving in the opposite direction since then, and that was early in camp, to be honest with you, maybe a week in. And so Pete Carroll is building this culture on the back of true competition everywhere. I don't think he would hesitate to make any sort of a move on at any job roster spot, and that includes that backup quarterback. And so I'm curious how Aiden responds to a down game, kind of a down week. It was a struggle for him yesterday when the Raiders, tried to challenge him in terms of the pace of the game and the operational pace, and he didn't do a very good job of it, and showed some real frustration in that. And I want to see how he responds to that on Saturday. But if it's a continuation or more of the same, it just keeps opening up the door a little bit for Cam Miller to make up ground.
Yeah, and look, I think there's a lot of ground to make up. I think there's more ground to make up than people might think.
Right.
But
it's also a long season.
It is. and it's possible. And look, it's also like there's a lot that's possible in the next week, for sure. The next couple of days. But I think going into the season, they're much more comfortable with Aiden O'Connell being the number 2 guy, unless something could change. They could find a guy on the waiver wire that gets released that they want to bring in, and a lot of the coaches. This on kind of a side note, like a lot of the coaches have discussed, and we talked to a lot of assistant coaches today. Of a lot of the guys that they brought in are guys that they've had previous relationships with, and they understand. So it's not like these coaches have been around a lot to a lot of different programs, a lot of different organizations. They know a lot of different players, and so if somebody becomes available that they have a relationship with, it's not like some completely new guy. It's like, oh, hey, look, I coach this guy. He's been in this system. He understands this. And those sorts of things could change things. Right now, I think it's pretty obvious. Aiden O'Connell's number 2. Cam Miller's number 3. Not going to change between now and the beginning of the season. But like I said, long season, things can happen.
Last one for me in terms of Saturday is the running back position. Obviously, we talked yesterday about Raheem Mostert dealing with, kind of a family issue.
Yeah.
And that's the door has always been open for Zamir White. He kind of burst through that early in training camp, and it's been nothing but steps in the right direction for him. And I think he's really impressed a lot of people around here, including offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. And I would have to say that as of right now, the combination of him doing his thing, Zamir White, and also the lack of Raheem sometimes at practices has really maybe solidified Zamir as that number 2 running back. How much do you think Saturday's game will play into that?
0, because I think it's done. I think Zamir White is the number 2 running back.
Right.
I don't think there's a doubt about that. I don't think there's a question about it. I don't think that's one of those jobs that's up for grabs at this point.
So then we're going to hit on this again. We've talked about this before, but we'll hit on it again. If you move Raheem down to the 3rd running back role, I think that puts his roster spot in a little bit of peril, because there's guys behind him, and Sincere McCormick and Dylan Laube, Dylan in particular, that can play special teams. And in Sincere's case, whereas Raheem traditionally doesn't. And in Sincere's case, if he could play special teams and be that kind of emergency 3rd back, that if both of if the starter and the backup go down, that they feel comfortable that Sincere can carry him for a game or 2 or whatever the case might be as the number 1 guy, then that combination of that confidence and his special teams play could win him a roster spot. And I just keep seeing Dylan Laube lining up with every first team special teams. Every day that when they go to special teams, he's on a first team unit, punt return, punt coverage, kickoff return, kick coverage. He's always out there. So that, I think, is really starting to convince me that he might have a spot on this 53-man roster.
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. I think that's kind of the question to me. I think it's Laube or Mostert to me. Like that's kind of the debate at running back. I mean, unless
you're Sincere's on the team, huh?
On my team, I mean, I might be, I've always had very strong feelings that Sincere McCormick could be a really good running back.
Yeah.
In this league, I think he can, he can excel. Like you said, we've seen him thrust into that role in very short, stints, but we've seen him thrive in that role. So I think they're pretty comfortable with that as long as they're comfortable with where he is on special teams as he continues to learn and progress there. He's certainly not as active and involved as Dylan Laube, but he's doing it more and more that we're seeing. So
I think the first team
as long as they're
kickoff
comfortable with where he is.
First team kickoff return today was Dylan Laube and Zamir as the returners.
Yeah,
which is I don't know what to make of Sincere as a special teams player because I just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he definitely needs to flash in that regard if he hasn't already to really help solidify his role. We're going to go to our weekly our weekly segment, I should say, with Heidi Fang and Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos STN Sports, and they're going to talk about some interesting things from the gaming world. Heidi and Chuck, take it away.
And joining us now here on the Vegas Nation First and 10 podcast, we have the race and sportsbook director, Chuck Esposito, in from Station Casinos for his regular segment here on the show. I'm Heidi Fang, joining you as well. We're going to talk about some of the numbers, things you can find on the STN Sports app, as well as in physical locations around the Las Vegas Valley. Chuck, first of all, how's everything going?
Everything's going great, Heidi. All I can say is from my side of the counter, yay, sportsbooks. Football's here. So we're excited about it. You can just tell totally different vibe and atmosphere and kind of hype in the books with our contests and week 0 this week for college football. And then, of course, all the pro football stuff that we can chat about, including the Raiders.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to jump right into that with the Raiders. Of course, this Saturday's preseason game being the final one of the week on the sports books and the schedule and everything, happening at 7 p.m. in Arizona. The Raiders right now are -2 on the spread. And that one seems kind of interesting from your perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the last game on the board. You're right. I mean, the Raiders so far in the preseason, 1 tie, 1 loss. We know they want to kind of change that narrative under Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly and kind of get that positive vibe there with what they did in the offseason, bringing in Geno Smith and drafting Ashton Genty. The Cardinals opened up a 1.5-point favorite here. It has flipped favorites, like you mentioned. Raiders now a 2-point favorite. I think it's interesting because we chatted about this last week. It's really all about information in the preseason. Games are going to move much faster. There's no real key numbers. I think it's an important game here where the Raiders look to maybe get a win before the season starts. Even though it's just preseason, rumor is the Cardinals will be resting a lot of their starters in this one. Still a couple of days until kickoff, but that's why the big shift in the numbers so far.
I'm curious to see the Aiden O'Connell, Cam Miller duel, to see the playing time between the two backups for the Raiders, to see how well that they fare, just given, lately we've seen some struggles out of Aiden O'Connell.
A lot of buzz with Cam Miller so far. So we just saw the Bears give an undrafted free agent from a few years ago out of Shepherd, Tyson Bagent, a new 2-year contract that averages $5 million a year, and it can even be more than that with incentives. So you're always looking for that guy behind your starter who can be that guy to elevate your team, not miss a beat, and take it to the next level. So I think it's an important game for Cam Miller as well.
Yeah, another rookie that we'll take a look at in the Seahawks game, I'm sure, Jalen Milroe. I'm looking forward to seeing how much the Seahawks give him some time on the field. Of course, that game against the Packers. Right now, I'm curious on the spread, the numbers on that, Chuck. What kind of movement have you seen in that game?
Yeah, the Seahawks did open up the favorite in this game, and then it flipped to the Packers the favorite. So, again, it's that information that we're hearing out there. This was a Seahawks team that was a 10-win team last year, Heidi. They decided to move on from Geno Smith, bring in Sam Darnold. Is he really going to elevate them anymore from a 10-win team, or are there some struggles there? He did struggle last year toward the end of the season and in the playoffs, so we'll see what he brings to the table. But I think everybody's kind of anxious and curious to see what Jalen Milroe can do in that offense. But with Clint Kubiak, it's going to be a lot of Kenny Walker and Zach Charbonnet to the right and to the left and straight up the middle. They're going to run the ball a lot with those two guys.
Can't wait to see how that works out. And, this is thinking about one other matchup that we were talking about ahead of this, that I was saying maybe this team has the Hard Knocks flu. I'd see some.
I know where you're going with that. Yep.
Yeah, the Bills and the Bucks. I mean, the Bills right now, I believe it was at +2, right? They're the underdog in this one.
Yeah, well, the Bills were the underdog, but now
okay.
They're actually the favorite in this game against the Bucks. And I think a lot of it is, although you're not going to see Josh Allen, you're not going to see a lot of their starters, the fact they played so poorly in that game against the Bears. I mean, we needed the Bears that day. You saw a lot of Bills love going into the game, just thinking that from a skill position player and their second and third line guys are better. This is a team that many people think will be playing in February, that Josh Allen will finally get there this year and maybe get to the Super Bowl and win it. So I think it's a product of playing so poorly that no team wants to get beat 38-0 in a preseason game and then lose that last preseason game. So a little bit of love early on now for the Bills as well. Totally different in the preseason than the regular season, but we are seeing some movement on those 3 games.
Hopefully you're also seeing some movement in that last man standing contest. I know that you've had it up for a while. Are the entries flowing? Are they coming?
The entries are flowing. They really pick up in that first week. This is week 0, so it doesn't count for the college week, but they really pick up a lot. A signature contest for us, 100,000 guaranteed in the college, 150K guaranteed in pro, aggregate payouts in case there's a tie. They would split the winnings. But you think about it, $25. That's it to get in. There's some big contests out there with big paydays, But for $25, you have a chance to win either 100 or 150K. You can enter more times. You can get up to 4 entries for 100K and a bonus 5th entry, but only costs $25 to get in.
There you go, fans all listening out there. You guys can get in on that action as well at any of the station locations around town. There's tons of them: Palace Station, Red Rock, Green Valley. Make sure to check all of those out. And of course, the new and beautiful Durango that we talked about all last season as well. Like, that place is absolutely amazing. If you haven't been down that way, make sure to check it out. And as well as downloading the app, Station Casinos, STN Sports app, you can find all of the numbers that Chuck and I have discussed right on the palm of your hand. So again, thank you so much for the time, Chuck. I appreciate it. And we'll get back into it again next week. Labor Day, so not too much probably at NFL, but we can maybe look at some of the fun props and what's happening ahead of the week 1 matchups coming to us when it gets to be around Labor Day and all. So appreciate your time as always, though, Chuck. Thanks so much.
You're welcome, Heidi. Sounds great. Like I said, it's EA Sportsbooks. We're excited. It's football time of year, so check out the STN Sports app for all the great betting options.
Our thanks to Heidi Fang and Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos STN Sports. You guys asked for it. We are delivering Vegas Nation Raider coverage at a discounted price, a special for the new season, 25 cents total for the next 3 months. It's an incredible deal. It's 97% off on the normal price. So 25 cents for the next 3 months coverage for VegasNation.com. Just go to vrj.com/nation for all the details. Check it out. I'm telling you, it's your one-stop shop for all Raider news and coverage. So take advantage of that. By the way, continue to subscribe, or just hit subscribe if you haven't, to our Vegas Nation YouTube page as well. And thank you for the support. All right, so let's close it up with final thoughts on the preseason game. But also, we're not going to talk to everybody until we're gonna actually we're doing a post game.
Sure.
To post game, it'll post on Sunday, so keep an eye out for that. But your final thoughts on this last preseason game for the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's a ton of starting spots available that are open. I think most of them are fairly set. I think there's a lot of rotational questions, especially on the defensive side, on the line and in the secondary. So watching those guys, maybe you kind of mentioned before about where guys are lining up on special teams, like watch, or especially early in the game, who the guys
definitely early
special teams are. There's somebody actually asked me about Thayer Munford the other day. Like, will he make the team? And he's essentially the swing tackle. He's going to be the top guy off the bench to play tackle, but he's always on field goals and extra points. Like, he's always there on that first unit. So I mean, those are guys that are going to be kind of locked in. Like, they're practicing like it's regular season for those things. So like, watch things like that if you're paying attention to the game, and then certainly. I know everybody likes to watch quarterbacks, but I think the other positions are where you get to see a lot of, who's getting a lot of reps, who's staying in the game late, who's standing out. I mean, we talked about some of the newer guys that have come in, the Terrell Edmonds, who might get even more reps because they're just trying to get him up to speed a little bit more. Yeah,
because he came in late.
But yeah, I think like that's the kind of stuff that I think you watch in preseason games, especially a final preseason game like this.
Yeah.
Where there's going to be cuts made, and I think there might be a couple spots open at the end of the roster. But Pete Carroll said, and we heard it earlier, just don't try to do something special. Try to do what you can do your job, do what we ask you to do, and that's how you're going to be, how you're going to stand out to the coaches.
And keep an eye out on that long ball with Dont'e Thornton and Geno Smith. We'll see if they are able to connect finally in a game. Finally, it's the third preseason game. Anyway, I want to say thank you to
10 long years.
10. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for all the support. We appreciate it. Enjoy your Friday and Saturday. We'll be back with you guys on Sunday to recap what we saw on Saturday from Glendale, Arizona. Enjoy the game. I think it's actually going to be an entertaining game and kind of important game for you as fans to assess your team, and also for some players out there that are battling for jobs. Thank you again. Thanks to Heidi Fang, our producer. Thanks to Las Vegas Review-Journal and Station Casinos STN Sports for all their support. Thank you, Adam Hill. We'll see you guys on Sunday.